In today's readings, we heard St. Paul give some advice. I, Paul, urge you to live in a manner worthy of the call you have received. What does it mean to live a life worthy of the calling we have received? What is our calling? Jesus has simply called you and me to love one another as I have loved you. Jesus has called us to change the way we look at people who are in need, to look at each human being before us as a child of God, and truly love them as God loves. Pope Francis, on many occasions, urges us to always keep our gaze fixed on the least of all, the poor. To broaden our gaze, we should start from the eyes of the poor person who is in front of us. It is with the eyes of the poor that we need to look at reality, which the poor look at from a different way than our own. The truly poor have so little in material goods. No home, no money, no form of transportation, no telephone, no television, many times only the clothes on their back, and they are truly dependent upon others. In some ways, however, the poor are blessed with spiritual depth, for they realize their dependence is on faith in God. Our God, Jesus, was born into a poor family. As he preached his message as well while he was here on earth, he and his disciples, the apostles, went from place to place, dependent upon others for lodging and food. At the very heart of the ministry of Jesus to those in need was his commitment to encounter the people where they were. Jesus listened to each person with the ear of the heart. In last week's gospel, we saw the many people following him to be hungry. He noticed this, and so he began to teach them. In our gospel today, John speaks to us about the crowd, a crowd who had been with him already for 3 days. Jesus knew that they had exhausted the food they had with them, and they were tired. He was aware that God had done marvelous things and deeds through the prophet Elijah and Elisha. And here today we heard about Elisha, who offered the equivalent of 100 hungry people 20 loaves and some small grain. Now, what if I told you after Mass today, I will provide something for you? We're only going to have 20 loaves and a little bit of grain. There are over 100 and some of you. Do you think that would go very far? But Elisha's outrageous desire to respond to the need that he found in front of him, a need he knew would be fulfilled by God. The people ate, and they had leftovers. Jesus was aware of that miracle of Elisha. Today, John's gospel account of the miraculous sharing of bread, a mere 5 loaves, 1 loaf for each 1,000 people, and 2 fish. This miracle took place, as John said, around the time of Passover, the celebration of God's deliverance of Israel from slavery in Egypt, a feast that also coincided with the Feast of Unleavened Bread that marked the beginning of barley harvest. The preposterous disparity between the size of the crowd and the quantity of available food was to exhibit the extravagant generosity of our God. In John's account today, we also hear echoes of the Last Supper. Jesus takes the bread, gives thanks, and distributes it to the people. A tiny amount was offered, the multitude ate, and there was food to spare. These stories of miraculous sharing call us to share preposterous faith. We are called, like Jesus, to offer our lives and to assume that God will do more with us than we can ever imagine. Back during seminary days, when I was in college seminary at Assumption Seminary, San Antonio, Father Bernard Loftus was our pastor. At the end of each summer, the pastor of the parish would invite the seminarians to come to his home for supper. Father Loftus came from England originally, and he had two blood sisters that came with him, Nora and Kathleen Loftus. Kathleen was the kindergarten teacher, and Nora was the housekeeper and cook. At that time, I was the only seminarian from our parish, so I arrived shortly before the meal. When I came through the door, I could smell, this is going to be really great. The table was set in the dining room, and in a few minutes, we were invited by Father and his sisters to come to table. As soon as we got to the table, the doorbell of the rectory rang. Father Loftus answered the door. We heard him speaking to a man for a little while, and then he simply turned and told Nora, "Please set one more place, Nora." He invited the man who came to the door, who was an itinerant, who was hungry, to sit down and eat with us. It was not just the food. The man said simply, "You don't know how much I have enjoyed this." The food was excellent, but more important, I was able to visit with you as one human being to another. I enjoyed that more than the food. Can we do that? Oh, yes. We are called to really listen to one another, to be aware of another's needs, to share with others who have less, to be selfless, and to trust that God will help us. We are called by our God to see one another as God sees us, and to see with the eyes of the heart, and to live a life worthy of our calling.